My name is Wesley Edmonds. I am a director of workplace with OFS, and I am so excited and honored to be here in front of all of you, and am joined by my co-moderator today, Christina Jameson.
Thanks, Wesley. And hello, everyone. I'm Christina Jameson with OFS. I'm the other director of workplace, and I am so honored to be in a room full of people who are so passionate about creating change in places that are meaningful for the people that come to them every day. So this, to me, is like, how powerful is this room right now? But for those of you that don't know who OFS is a family-owned commercial furniture manufacturer that's been creating quality products since 1937. So we pride ourselves in creating solutions that really, truly support people. And so we're happy to be here today and having this conversation.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So a quick kind of insight into our company. Our owner, Hank Minke, always tells us, I mean, it's on the walls at corporate, it's on a lot of the journals we make, it's on t-shirts, it's what we make people feel is as important as what we make. And so that's really why we're so excited to host this session, because we feel that so deeply in who we are as a company and everyone that works with us. So today we're going to explore how forward-thinking leaders, these women joining us, are moving beyond top-down structures to create environments that are intuitive, adaptive, inclusive, and built around how people actually work. Not just maybe want to work, but how they actually work.
And just like we heard everyone echo today, human-centered design is at the forefront of how we're creating our spaces, but also there's this new generation of leaders coming into the workforce that are breaking down silos, building trust, and creating cultures that support both collaboration and development. So with that, we're gonna dive in, and I wanna introduce our lovely panelists who have taken time away from their families and their work to be here with us. And first, I have my friend and colleague, and we've got to work on some of the most incredible projects together, Shanna Francis. Thank you for being here. Can you introduce yourself?
Thank you. So my name is Shanna Hansen-Francis. I lead the corporate interior design team for Hunt & Brady Architects, and that's located in Orlando, Florida. I have 26 years experience in only corporate interior design, so I have been around the block a few times. But I've also got to work on some really fantastic corporate headquarters like Closet Maid, Spirit Airlines, Marriott Vacation Worldwide, and I'm currently working on a 700,000 square foot headquarters in Miami. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. But when I'm not designing, I live in a 200-year-old farmhouse in Virginia with lots of furry pets.
That's
Awesome.
amazing.
Thanks for being here, Shanna.
And a flower garden.
And a flower garden, that's true.
And a cow named Carly. Shanna, thanks so much for being here. We also have my dear friend, also a friend and colleague who I've worked with for a long time and gotten to know, Amanda Wing. So Amanda, will you introduce yourself?
I'm Amanda Wing. As Wesley just said, I have been in the business for about 25 years. 24 of that is with Smallwood. It's an architecture and design firm located in Atlanta and Singapore. And I have had the pleasure of working with Chick-fil-A as my mainstay client for the last 24 years. And so I'm going to be bringing some of that insight for our discussion today. My biggest passion is making sure that we create spaces that actually work for individual clients. There's no one size fits all, and so we have to make it work for the individuals within the space.
Thanks so much, Amanda.
And I hate microphones. Never know what to do with it.
Thanks, Amanda. So excited you're here. And I also have this distinguished pleasure of introducing Lindsay Herrick, a fellow Atlantan. So the three of us are ironically all from Atlanta. But Lindsay, would you like to go ahead and introduce yourself? So glad you're here.
My name is Lindsay Herrick, and I oversee design and planning for Southern Company. For those of you that are not familiar, we are the parent company for Georgia Power, Alabama Power, Mississippi Power, Nicor Gas. I could go on and on and on, but we are very big in the utility industry. So I oversee design and planning for about 500 buildings across the southeast Chicago. That's about it.
Thanks so much, guys. Well, let's dive on in.
Okay, so we're gonna start off and keep it pretty simple. And those of you out there, you may see little pins that say humans over hierarchy on your table. And you're like, what the heck does this mean? So I want to start with the first question, keep it simple. Each of you, I'm going to start with you, Shanna.
Okay.
What does designing for humans over hierarchy mean to you?
I think in its most simplistic form, it's when employers put their employees first for many different reasons, and then work with a design firm to create a solution that is holistic and works for everyone, not just executives or a specific portion.
Amanda, can you add to that? What does designing for humans over
Mine.
hierarchy mean to you?
In simple forms, from speaking from a designer's perspective, it really means putting the actual people in the space over the actual boxes that go within the space. We've moved past that, and hopefully, as we move into kind of 2026 and 2027, we're going to see design continue to transform and be about the people that are in this space and not about the things that are in this space.
Lindsay, what does designing for humans
You
over
want me to
hierarchy?
repeat that 3 times?
I mean, like, unless you have a different interpretation of it, we can move on. What do you think?
No. I was going to be less eloquent than these lovely ladies and just say, you're thinking of the end user versus the leadership team necessarily. You're looking at the people that are in the space all the time. And if you're out there asking those questions and what they need from a day-to-day standpoint and doing active listening, then you're really going to design something that allows everybody to collaborate.
Thank you. And what I say is designing for humans over hierarchy is simply designing for people and understanding the people that are coming into the workforce and the majority of the workforce. So by 2030, 75% of the workforce is going to be made up of millennials, and 2/3 of the leaders, the mid-tier leaders, are going to be made up of millennials. So it's important to understand their priorities and what they value. And this is the first time we truly have a generation that values purpose over pay. They value upskilling. So how do we create spaces that support these types of values that are driving the majority of our workforce? So Shanna, McKinsey reported that in 2023, companies that focused on human-centered workplaces see a 32% boost in productivity and a 21% jump in profitability. Those are huge numbers. Can you share a learning experience where your design helped create spaces around this philosophy, designing for humans over hierarchy, and how it empowered people to be more successful?
Absolutely. So I mentioned earlier that I have this very large headquarters project in Miami. I'm under an NDA, so I'm going to try really, really hard not to get in legal trouble up here without divulging too much information. But so I was hired by a parent company to unite 6 of their brands on one campus. So it's a little over 2,200 employees and 6 brands. So let's just think about that. That's 6 presidents, 6 vice presidents, 6 CFOs, 6, you just multiply that C-suite times 6 in addition to their corporate owner, who will also be at this campus. So that is a lot of egos to have to design around, And they're very happy with the status quo. They want the perimeter offices. They want the executives on the corner. They want the workstations on the inside. That's how they've been working for decades, and it works for them until now. Could I have designed that space and just check the boxes and move on? Of course, we can all do that. But I had a meeting with the CEO and the CHRO, Chief Human Resource Officer, and they used words like, this is a single location. This is going to be our North American operations. This is a uniting of all of our brands. This is a collaboration. We want to share innovation. And so you think about all of those terms and their wishes and their desires, and you look at the way that they're currently working, and it just doesn't work. It just simply doesn't work. So to redo all of that at this multiple billion-dollar campus was a waste. So I took the program that was provided by their lovely broker, and we trashed it. We started over. We ask some really hard questions. We use some of the same statistics that you're going to hear in this discussion today. And we basically created a different floor plan. We've united similar working brands on same floors. We've mixed it up. We've made a lot of people not happy. But I think in the end, it's going to be great. You know, this project isn't going to be built for another 3 years. That's how long it's going to take. So we designed a floor plan that is going to evolve with them and be flexible. And so I think, you know, the most important thing is stop designing the checklist and have conversations with people and find out what really works with them, because no one is the same. No company is the same. I've been doing this for a very long time. There's not one size fits all for every single company, so you have to get to know them and understand what their wishes and their desires are.
And have the courage to speak up when you say, hey, you're asking for this, but
Yes.
this just truly isn't what you really are asking for.
I will not get wine at Christmas from many people.
I'll give you some wine.
All right, so this next statistic you guys are going to see on the screen really points to this kind of disconnect between the spaces that employees are occupying and the evolving needs of today's workforce. And I've had some great conversations with so many of you earlier today, and one of the takeaways was really kind of thinking through this multi-generational workforce, but how all of us have basic human needs, right? So whether it's the youngest generation, the oldest generation, there is this underlying basic human need, consistency, but if we're not designing to that and not thinking through those basic human needs and the multiple players, like really kind of two things can be true if we're not keeping that in mind, but also the different ages of people coming in and what that means. It almost sounds like an oxymoron, but you do, like what you were talking about, Shanna, that's a sticking point if people are thinking this way and needing to design this way. So taking a look at this statistic, Amanda, I'm going to give this next one to you. You'll love that you look surprised.
Yeah.
When we look at traditional office environments, so think rigid layouts, corner offices, limited flexibility, they often reflect outdated hierarchies. They usually go hand in hand. So how are you seeing these design elements conflicting with today's growing focus on empathy, well-being, human-centered design, and just the needs of the upcoming workforce?
So I would say the hierarchy is not necessarily outdated, but the way in which interaction is occurring within the office needs to change from a status or a level. This is a tough one because a lot of C-suites still want to sit in their office. They want that space. They worked hard for it. It took them a long time to get it. They want to be able to have their meetings in their office. They don't want to have to get up and go move because it's going to extend the amount of time that they have to go from place to place. So I think it's important that we understand that this is a tough thing for everybody to wrap their head around, and it doesn't mean that you have to go from one extreme to the other. It doesn't mean that offices don't exist. It doesn't mean that some people don't have a permanent resident or a permanent home within the space. It means that you really need to take a look at what works for that group, what works for that team, what works for that group's management style, and how do you involve all the parties and create a space where you can have some of the things that need to happen today. With a lot of people working from home, most folks that are coming in, specifically millennials that are coming in, they're coming in because they want to actually see people. They want mentorship. They're craving mentorship, and they're not getting it when they're sitting on a screen and they're just looking across the screen the whole time. So it's important that we create spaces where people can have these unintentional meetings, and they can actually have moments where they can have an impromptu conversation where they can learn and they can grow from one another. But that can get in the way of having, 15 by 20 offices along the wall. So it's really about reinventing how those spaces, what they look like, and how they function. And maybe you still have a few C-suites, but maybe they're shared. And I'll use Chick-fil-A as an example, because their executive team made the decision before they asked anyone to give up their office that they gave up their own office. And that didn't mean that they gave up, right? That's tough to do, right? That's a tough thing to do. And that didn't mean that they didn't have a place to go and work. So what we created was basically a space for the executive team to live, and it has a various different types of meeting space because most of them are in meetings when they're there all of the time. It did provide spaces where they could go into a heads down if they needed to have 2 hours on a call that was important. Obviously, acoustics are really critical at that point. But what they did by doing that is they showed through leadership an example. If I can do it, you can definitely do it. And I think when you actually are in this space and you see people doing it and you realize that, hey, this isn't happening to me, it's something that's happening together as a team, there's a lot of value in that.
Absolutely. And I also think we're not saying get rid of the private office. Obviously, we heard today from WeWork that the private office is the most highly demanded space within WeWork right now. But I think it's how do we make these environments or create environments to where this younger generation that craves purpose and upskilling and mentorship feel comfortable coming in. A panelist referred to this earlier as a therapist sofa. Like, that's the type of interaction that we want. We want people to feel vulnerable enough to come in and be honest and open with their leader. And how do we really start to relook at these spaces as beyond a prescriptive design, an L shape and a U shape, and make them adaptive and interactive and comfortable? So, Lindsay, leadership can be isolating. Can anybody resonate with that in here? Yeah? The Harvard Business Review found that 61% of executives feel lonely in their roles, especially in hierarchical structures. How do you think intentional design can ease that loneliness, and create spaces where everyone feels more supported?
I think a lot of that depends on you as an individual leader. First, in order to build that trust and have your people feel like they're supported, they need to know that you've got them, and that's number one. Second, I do not believe that we should be asking anything of our people that we're not willing to do ourselves. At Southern Company, we have taken away, for the most part, there are still offices, there are still times when those individual spaces are needed, but I sit with my team. I sit in a little 6x2, touchdown space. It is collaboration all day long. We've created intentional pathways where if you're walking down the office or, in the open office, you have to stop. People are going to see you. You have to have those little side conversations. You have to build that rapport. And that's really, really important to us because we want, at the end of the day, we're working with individuals that are making sure that your power is still on. You have to trust the people that you're working with. So it's really, we value that over anything else. We also recognize that people do work differently. So one of the things that we do is I strive in loud environments, and I love at the end of the day to go to a bar and have a glass of wine and put in my AirPods and work and do whatever I need to do, but have the commotion all around me. But there are people of my team, they want quiet. So we have living rooms that people can go to. We have phone booths that they can go to. You do not have to always stay in that open office. You have places that you can go where you feel supported in how you work. But it's just set up differently.
I also love that idea of creating accidental, air quotes intended, meetings among hierarchical leadership and then those that are not technically in leadership. That's one of many examples of the power of design to me, is that that's something that maybe a C-suite executive might not think of. But when you get someone who's a design professional helping you with your space planning, they can say things like, if this is a problem in your organization, let us help you create that solution without it being so obvious. It doesn't have to be such a scripted answer or such a scripted solution. And I think that was such a beautiful example, Lindsay.
Well, and also secretly, I get to hear people talk, so I keep my ear low to the ground, and I can kind of still know what's going on when people don't want to come to me.
Definitely. So Shanna, I've always admired, and I'm going to give a little way to the audience here. You worked in Orlando for many years, and recently you followed your dream to move to this beautiful 200-year-old cabin in Virginia. And so now you're a remote leader, which I think takes a lot of courage, but also I'm sure probably could be lonely at times. How do you combat loneliness, or how do you, how do you
Get
stay
another
connected
animal.
with the team being remote? Like, what are your struggles and your challenges and your learnings from that?
Well, I
Like
think
Lindsay said, is this why you have so many animals?
maybe I need to sit on the couch. So I think to understand that, you need to understand the culture at Hunt and Brady. So prior to moving to Virginia, I did sit out with my team as well. And the way that our new office was designed, which by the way opened 2 months before COVID, sent us all home.
Same with ours.
Yeah, same, okay. We designed it so that our design table, pinup board is the center of our office space. So we all kind of encircle that. We all sit together regardless of what your title is, unless of course you're HR, IT, and who's the other one?
Security.
Accounting.
I don't know.
Sorry, accounting.
Accounting.
Yes,
But I bet those three
accounting.
people don't want to be there anyway,
No.
so it's okay. Everybody's still happy.
But besides that, we all sit together. So what that allows to happen is mentorship, knowing what's going on projects that you're all kind of co-authoring together. It allows us to figure out if one of our employees is having a bad day or something's happening, so we can give them a little extra grace and space to like move through what they need. So that is going on as a standard way of practice at Hunt and Brady. We definitely act like we are family. So there was a huge shock when I moved to Virginia. And, at first, they kind of forgot about me because, out of sight, out of mind. But I happen to be a very strong-willed person. You might gather that by the end of this. And so what happened is I decided that I would just insert myself via technology in all of their lives. So every single day, I have a 30-minute call. You have to use your camera for every single one of my interior designers. In addition to that, we have a team meeting, and then we also have individual meetings related to the projects that we're working on. So it just took me, kind of transforming the way that we work. And if you ask them, they will say that it's better than when I sat with them in Orlando, because I truly make an effort and concerted effort to spend time with each and every one of them every single day. And it's made us a better team.
I love that. And I think the power of connection could happen in the office or remote, especially with this hybrid shift, as long as you're making the effort.
Oh, and I guess I should have said, I am in Virginia 3 weeks and then spend 1 week in Florida. So I'm not completely remote. I travel back and forth.
I think to kind of take this conversation from this higher level view of what we can do as designers or placemakers, I'm going to go a little bit deeper into the actual workplace. So I want to talk a little bit about flexible furniture. We've heard a lot about that today. There are a lot of ways to interpret that. So Amanda, I would love to get your perspective on the use case of flexible furniture. How are you seeing that work well for either Chick-fil-A or other companies you're working with, and just ways that you've kind of seen this work, and do you think it's going to continue?
I 100% think it's going to continue. I know for facilities folks, it is immediate thought is nightmare. Like, we don't want it to be flexible. That means that furniture is going to be everywhere and it's not going to be in the right spot at this point, or it's going to be more work on our end because we have to actually go back and reset it. And I think that shift is starting to change now that organizations are actually seeing that it is working, and it's actually creating less work for a lot of the facilities groups. So I'm going to use an example of the flexible spine that is now the new world of furniture. No longer are you completely tied to it. A lot of times you can take a team of 8 and make it a team of 6. You can go from having all kind of aligned workstations, and you can turn one perpendicular to the other. It's however the team works best. And because we know business is going to continue to be agile and we know that teams are going to continue to shift, having the ability to quickly get in and make a new group setting without actually, and this is bad for if there's any actual dealers in here, forgive me, but this is bad for the dealer. But it's good for the actual companies because you can make a change on the fly. And in fact, some of the people on your team can make that decision. And really, we see productivity going way up because they're making a decision to work in a way that works for their team, and they can quickly assess it and quickly make it work. And this could be workstations. This could be creating maybe it's non-typical office that can actually be used for a huddle space. If someone's in the office and they do have, let's say it's somebody in legal, but they work 2 weeks in and they're 2 weeks out, providing a couple of locked drawers, but then allowing that space to be open for another group who's in the office but doesn't have a specific spot, they can go have a huddle for the day and use that space, and so it's dual purpose. And so I think having kind of this ancillary furniture and office furniture and various types of different settings and meeting rooms is going to continue to be what we see going forward. I mean, I know you specifically can speak to it being with Southern Company, but from a designer perspective, it was something that made people nervous at first, and now we're really seeing people welcome that and say, hey, this is actually making our life easier than it was before.
Yeah, and we've been doing as a company a lot of research around co-working and flex space, like WeWork is doing and other companies. And I think that only serves to support one another. This is not a competitive industry. There is tons of competitive nature among the industry, of course, but I mean in co-working and like a corporate office, those two things can support one another. And I think that's why we see the rise of the co-working spot or people becoming members at places, because they can create their own little space that feels like their own, but it's still within
that
the
they may not
confines
have
of-
at home.
They can,
right.
Exactly, that they don't have at home. And companies I would agree with you, we're seeing more companies kind of take that idea using flexible furniture and create these spaces that employees can do their own thing with in the confines of what facility says is and is not possible.
Same with sizing. If you're going to have a 10 by 10 office, then it can be a 10 by 10 huddle. It can easily be changed out. It could go to being 2 people working in the space because they have a project they're working on for 6 weeks or whatever it might be. But making sure that you have a module set in place, that's really important as well for the ultimate flexibility. And the more we can get it off the mullions, because even though we think the architects are always thinking about those mullion placements, they are not.
They are not. They're not.
So the more you can take it off the mullions, the more, and create a grid system and break that up with flexible furnishings, the better you are from a real estate perspective and what you need to do or change 5 years down the road.
I will say 80% of our buildings are dirt wall systems. And I have an entire massive warehouse where it has, Miller Knoll, Ethos Space, and the dirt wall systems. I can rearrange a floor, like an entire 25,000 square foot floor, in less than 4 weeks.
No demolition.
No demolition. Maybe a floor core here and there.
Well, Shanna, I'm going to put you back in the hot seat for a second. So Harvard Business Review reports that psychologically safe workplaces see 76% more engagement and 50% higher productivity rates. Again, some incredible numbers. Was there a specific moment in your career or a story or a lesson from your work life that really sparked the idea of designing spaces with people's emotional well-being in mind?
Absolutely. So I'm going to go back to the Marriott Worldwide headquarters on this one. And so to understand the setting, again, we started designing that right before COVID. We took a year break. They sent everybody home. And when we saw that things were picking back up, we picked back up the project. And so obviously Marriott wanted to get their people back into the office space, but they had just spent 1 year working out of their living rooms or their dining room table or the beach or Starbucks or, wherever they felt most comfortable. So we had to bring them back in, and knowing that nobody wanted to sit into a workstation for 8 hours a day, we had a challenge ahead of us. There weren't all of these studies then that told us how to react to design after COVID. So we came up with, a few things that we held true to our beliefs. And one is that people had to be comfortable when they came back to the office. So we created a one-to-one me to we space. And what that means is for every me space, for every private office or workstation, they had one we space that they could go to. And whether that was a lounge, whether that was a collaboration space, a huddle space, a conference room, the cafe downstairs, they had one seat available to them where they could pick up their laptop and go work from anywhere. So that one-to-one is a pretty adventuresome ratio to try and hit, but we did it for that one. We're also striving for that in that Miami project as well.
And I also feel, from what I recall, I call Marriott my second baby because I was pregnant during the duration of the project, and then they complete it around the same time, my baby and Marriott. So I remember you guys also achieved Fitwell in that project.
Yes, we did.
Was that a driver from the pandemic, or was that something you always chose to go with?
That was something that the client believed heavily. They really placed value on their employees. I mean, their whole goal is that they create these amazing vacation adventures for people, and that they wanted to turn that inward and create a very amazing space for their employees to work. So it aligned with Fitwell values, and so that's why we achieved that certification.
I think that's so powerful, and you guys will see with this next statistic on the screen that is kind of speaking of that, Shanna. Employees that are in thoughtfully designed spaces are 2.5 times more likely to stay with their jobs long term. And anybody who's had to do hiring and firing and training knows how important that is to get them to stay put once you found those key personalities and strong employees. So many companies are talking about creating human first workplaces, but how do we actually make that happen? Lindsay, I would love to hear your perspective from Southern Company on how you guys are moving from talk to action.
I am so proud of my company. Somebody send the clip of me saying that. Our average tenure is 12 years. And when you start talking to everybody in the company, their parents worked there, their brothers and sisters worked there, their now children work there. And a lot of that goes to us stopping and listening and us being willing to pivot. We have always stated that for us, our number one is safety, and getting you home to your families at the end of the day is the most important. We do not care about, okay, don't send this next part that I'm about to say. We do not care about the money involved. If it means that our families are safe, then that's what's most important. So some of the things that have come up over the years that we've held on to is, the demisable walls and being able to change from one floor to the next what that organization needs. Surveys. We send out, I can't tell you how many surveys when we're getting ready to do a renovation, or right now we're going through an entire restack. We're moving our gas headquarters. So those are thousands of people that are being displaced. So finding out what it is that they need long-term, and then how we can support them during that move is very, very important to us. Some of the fun things we talked about earlier in another session, we've got a company dog. His name is Murphy. He is amazing. We've got fitness on demand. We've got gyms. We've got top-notch gyms. I don't work out at any of them, but they're fantastic. We've got family services. So if we've got our linemen out there restoring power for all of our customers, but they themselves don't have powers in their homes, we have an entire department that will make sure that you get dried goods, water, a generator set up. We take care of our people, and we're very, very stuck, and we want that long term.
And I also think, when we start, how do we turn talk into action? Having conversations like we're having today, and investing in roles like everyone in this room to really pioneer the space planning and the programming behind the intention of what the people truly need, which is what it sounds, what you guys do exactly, supporting the people.
I do think a big part of that also is change management.
Yes.
So I feel like it's such a buzzword that's out there, and it doesn't work unless you actually go through the process. So engaging people, oh my gosh, we only have 6 minutes. Engaging people, sorry, I just saw them look at the buzzer. But engaging, having somebody that comes in and is leading that charge, people want to feel like they're a part of the process, not that the process is happening to them. So that's really critical in all of this in order to make it successful.
I agree. One of the things that we do is our change champions, we like to call them. They are people on the floor. So they're also, it's not like we're bringing out somebody outside of the company that's saying, here it is, good luck,
Right.
Merry Christmas. We really want them to feel involved.
And if you had the pleasure of sitting in the Pfizer roundtable earlier, it's all about how we tell the story of change, too, and really finding those pioneers. So thank you for sharing that. Amanda, I'm going to keep you in the hot seat. Culture is such a buzzword.
Hot seats around here.
A lot of hot seats. Woo! But it's also critical to success. Research shows that toxic workplace culture is 10.4 times more likely to cause employees to quit than pay. How does everything we've talked about today, everything we've talked about this conference, contribute to creating workplace culture where people actually feel good about coming to work?
So I would say it starts, and you just said it, we can do surveys, we can do a lot of things. Programming at the beginning of a job, and I think there's been this shift over the last probably 10 years where your broker or your agent says, we'll tell you what you need in this space, and we'll tell you how big it
Please
is.
stop doing that. Sorry.
It's a horrible idea.
We don't have any brokers here, do we? We're
Well,
going to need you to step up here.
And this
If we
isn't-
do, they're not going to raise their hand
Yeah,
now.
no. But this isn't a dig at that per se. I understand the need for it when you're trying to plan how much space you want. But starting early and bringing in the design team on the front end, even if you have a moment of pause with them, to actually meet with people and really understand what it is they're doing every day, who they are as a group, so that you can actually design space that makes sense for them.
Yes.
Otherwise, you're just throwing all of the buzzwords and the cool stuff, you're throwing it at them, and you don't know how it works, and you don't know how it's going to actually help with an investment long term.
Yep.
So I think that's like a really critical path, and culture is so huge for millennials now. And it's not just a logo on a wall. People want to walk into a space and feel like they're at the company that they work for. They want to be proud of that company. So it's about storytelling. It's about how you actually make the space work for how they are doing the work. And you want people to come in and actually have those moments where they can have those kind of impromptu spaces or areas where they can gather together, because that's what creates culture. A building doesn't create culture. A logo doesn't create culture. People create the culture. So it's really important for us as designers and everybody that's in the campus planning and facilities team to create spaces where culture can actually thrive.
Yes. I want to say this as we kind of wrap up today. This next slide, I think, really kind of brings this conversation full circle, because what we also realize is that this isn't just about happy feelings and making everybody feel cozy inside. We also all have stakeholders, bottom lines to take care of. We are responsible to a lot of people for the money that we're either helping companies design for or designing for ourselves. So just kind of let this last statistic kind of sink in. MIT suggests that companies that embrace human-centered design outperform their peers by 228% over a decade. And at one of the roundtables earlier, we talked about the ROI of amenities and how hard it is to put your finger on what that means. Is what is an amenity? Let's start there. And that's even kind of difficult to name sometimes. And I think that when we step back and when we step back and look at the forest instead of just the trees inside of it, we see that over time, these small changes, these amenities, the flexible furniture, the hierarchical changes, the open floor plans, the open communication, change management, and being clear with employees, that over time adds up to a really big statistic. So it is just a little bit more than just the cozy feeling, right? It also comes down to the numbers.
Yes, and so I want to thank our incredible panelists for taking time out of your day and just being vulnerable and open and honest and bold to grow this conversation that is so important around people.
Yeah, we want to thank you guys so much. Thanks.
Wow, love it. Keep it going.
No, I just wanted to invite you guys. We know this is a really heady conversation, and we've got a lot of really smart minds up here with us. And so we will be in our exhibit booth over there with the room booth and the furniture. We'll be over there today and tomorrow. So if you want to keep the conversation going, come grab one of us. We'd love to have a conversation with you and take it a little bit further, because it matters. It really matters to us, of course, and we think to all of you too. So thanks so much for your time and just for letting us share some big thoughts with you today.